Of all the channels, of all of YouTube, and all of the internet, you just happen to tune into ours.
Josh, I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
Chris, why do you look like a Nazi?
Yeah. Wrong movie. Welcome to Crosscut, everyone. I'm your co-host, Chris.
And I'm your other co-host, Josh.
Well, first of all, happy Valentine's Day, everyone. And in the spirit of this holiday, why not review one of the most beautiful classics, Casablanca?
Smoking his Chesterfields, dying of asphyxiation cancer or something.
I chose Casablanca this week because I wanted to see an old classic movie, an old black and white, and still have the romance for Valentine's Day. I wanted to do Lisa Frankenstein, but let's go to classics. And besides, when I was last weekend, my mother-in-law was watching one of those old telenovelas in black and white, and it just made me want to do Casablanca even more. And it really is a timeless classic. You hear the so many taglines and lines from that movie constantly, especially if you're a movie buff. I missed watching those kind of movies. That's why I picked it. Talk about Casablanca. I mean, what are your thoughts?
It was all right.
Yes, Mr. 1940s classic Maltese Falcon and Psycho. There
I
was
will say this. Humphrey Bogart's one of my favorite actors of all time. I grew like when I was in like prime, like douchebaggery wannabe filmmaker phase, which is like 19, 20-year-old Josh. Watching Humphrey Bogart movies, that was like my core. You know, some people have their greats, Cary Grant, James Stewart. Mine was always Humphrey Bogart back in the day. Uh, I do go to Maltese Falcon because I love like film noir private detective movies, and
Mhm.
Maltese Falcon is like one of the classics, which came out a year before Casablanca. But I don't know, Humphrey Bogart, he just has such a unique look. I feel like
He does.
I wouldn't, even when I was watching Casablanca, I was just like, there's nobody in the world that looks like him. Like even since he died, before he was born, after he died, nobody in the world has ever looked like Humphrey Bogart. It reminds me of like, I don't know if you remember like Animaniacs cartoons. I think they like did like an episode with Humphrey Bogart in it, and they nailed it spot on. I was like, oh, he looks so good because he has such a specific look to him, like a guy who was in this movie. He was only like 40 something, which is weird to think because that's only about 7, 8 years away from where I'm gonna be.
Sure.
Yeah, man. I mean, Humphrey. I mean, and when you talk about Humphrey Bogart, top of the list, it's always going to be Casablanca. That's
Of
still one of
course.
his greatest movies of all time, and it's still considered one of the greatest movies of all time. And this movie, if you look at like the top 100 quotes, I think like 10 of them come from Casablanca.
Louis, I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
Yeah, they're so recognizable, you know, and just the story itself, the whole fighting against the Nazis in their own way. He can't leave Casablanca because of the war. That actually happened, all those concentration camps.
It's weird to think that this movie was made as the war was going on.
Yeah.
I
Like,
was trying to like think like how much information did they even know about the Nazis at this point? Because this came out, this was probably made in like 42. It takes place in
mhm.
December of 41, and it came out I think like early 43. I'm just like, did they even know like
it's
obviously they knew the
it's the
Nazis were
very
terrible, but did they even know like how bad everything was going on? Like, yeah.
I mean, you would think so. I mean, it was the end of World War II. Everything was everywhere. Of course, you could get all that information, and it just
So
made it
this is
more
just a
real for
so
people at that time going to the premiere.
I mean Casablanca is just a propaganda film. We get it. I always got to make the Nazis the bad guys. Oh God.
Wow. Cut, cut.
Actually, what's funny is watching this movie because we were joking before this. I was like, Chris, you look like the guy from Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark. And you know what's funny is that every time I watch Casablanca, I can't help but also think of Raiders of the Lost Ark. Not only because there's scenes that take place in Morocco, but what I love about Casablanca and Raiders of the Lost Ark, it reminds me of the great movie ride at Disney Hollywood Studios.
Yes.
One of the
Yes.
one of the great gems of theme park and just film history. If anybody ever had the opportunity to go on the Great Movie Ride when it was still there at Disney's Hollywood Studios down in Florida, it truly was a cinephile's wet dream.
Oh,
And
I
I
loved that ride.
and they had basically had two scenes. One was Raiders of the Lost Ark, and one was Casablanca. And I always just kind of like got the two always kind of like I said, anytime I watch Casablanca, I'm always thinking of Raiders of the Lost Ark. It's just not only because of Morocco, but also because of that ride. And I just remember
Not
like that queue line where you're standing in line and they're showing all the movie trailers. And I think Casablanca and Raiders might have been around the same time in that trailer that they were showing. And I don't know, I
maybe.
just always
Yeah.
yeah, and every time I see clips from Casablanca when I'm watching the movie, it just reminds me of waiting in line for the great movie ride, which I
Oh,
sadly miss.
yeah.
It really is one of those rides that made me really like love old movies, you know, especially like a movie like Casablanca.
Mhm. Yeah, and just seeing that one scene in that ride with the plane, the propeller, Humphrey
Humphrey
Bogart,
Bogart.
with the music going on during that scene, it's just it hits you. It's just so good. I gotta say though, my probably my favorite character in that movie is the corrupt cop.
You talking about Louis?
Yeah,
Yeah, Louis.
he's
I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship. Well,
oh
there's a great scene where he basically gets called out to like shut down Rick's cafe,
oh
and he's telling Rick, and he's like, "All right, why you shut me down? I'm shutting you down because you're gambling." And Rick kind of just like turns away, and then the guy comes up to him and says, "Here's your gambling winnings, sir." And
You're winning, sir. Oh, thank you very much. Everybody out at once.
this movie, it's been a minute since I've seen it, and
same.
I forgot certain story points or certain plot lines, and some just little humor. Like I like the bartender who's has got a little personality. He was
Yeah.
funny. Peter Lorre's always weird and great. He played the guy in the beginning that gives him the two basically the papers because he's also in Maltese Falcon. He also has a very unique look. I always thought David Dastmalchian, the guy that's been in like the Ant-Man movies and Dune, and I always thought he looked like Peter Lorre, like he's modern day Peter Lorre. Ingrid Bergman, beautiful, gorgeous. Josh's cutie
Is
of the
that
week.
that's Josh's cutie of the week.
Going old school, Ingrid Bergman.
You know, when I was also when the movie ended and they show the movies like this or similar,
Hmm.
I'm starting to say Gone with the Wind and Citizen Kane. I was like, great movies, great movies.
Yeah, all the big ones that came out around that time in the late 30s, early 40s. Yeah,
I really
that's how cinema was built. That's how cinema was made. That's how this country was made.
let's just go back to black and white. Just forget color.
Hmm, no, I've seen modern black and white. It's boring. Let's stick to color.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's the style of filmmaking, the just the acting itself. They don't act like that anymore. Like those movies where you have like the transatlantic accent, or the this it's very different. You don't see that feel in modern movies. Um,
I mean, it was a different time of filmmaking for sure. I
yeah.
mean, there's parts of this movie where I knew they filmed the whole thing and like you could tell they filmed it in like Hollywood and any exterior shots of them in like the market area. I'm like,
Mhm.
that's the Universal Studios Hollywood backlot. Like I know exactly where that is.
But it works. It's just a great film. I can always watch that every once in a while. Why not put it on? You never get bored of it when you watch it.
I mean, it's considered one of the greats. Yeah, it's a very simple story. Like it's really not that complicated. It's just
Oh,
about this character and his dilemma. You know, you see kind of his character arc. That's the Rick Blaine character. He's this hard exterior, but he's got this kind of soft inside, but he won't show it. And there's
right.
scenes where he kind of, he helps the one girl who's trying to who's trying to get to America. So he
Mhm.
gives her husband like that little tip when he's gambling. But his whole thing is like, I stick my neck out for nobody.
I'd stick my neck out for nobody.
And then
But he
and then
actually
you see it.
does.
Yeah.
He will, but he needs to have that hard exterior, or else people will probably take advantage of him, and especially during those times with the war going on, who knows what happened. So he needs to be the tough, Rick Blaine, American Cafe, Humphrey Bogart, smoking his Chesterfields, drinking alone kind of guy. So Chris, why'd you pick this movie for Valentine's Day? What about the romantic plot line made why not that movie?
Titanic.
It's the greatest love story of all time.
Eh,
I mean, this is a different kind of love story. It doesn't really work out for the character ultimately.
I know. I know he doesn't get the girl at the end, but it's still a romance. There's still a romance in it. If you put in top 10 romance movies. Casablanca is in that list.
It is on here, but I don't know if it would be considered top 10. It's not really a list though. It's more just like a
Hmm.
bunch of movies put here. It's on many lists for many things.
And you just gave a thumbs down. You see that? I don't know what else to say about it. I mean, you follow the storyline. The characters are interesting. During the war, which is it's already a period piece. I mean, it's got everything.
No, it doesn't have everything. I didn't
What
see
the-
no boobies. Again, Titanic, boobies, Kate Winslet. Me like one of your French girls, Jack. I didn't hear Ilsa saying, draw me like one of your Moroccan girls. Rick, where's the boobs? Where's the blood? There was no
Killing.
blood. There's killing. These were the types of movies back in the day where characters get shot in the back and there's
Yeah.
no effect. It's just which is great.
And no blood. There's just
Yeah.
I
Which
don't-
makes me think like I wonder if they could show blood back then or if they just didn't really have the means for practical effects at this time for like 1942. Because I'm trying to think like when did like actual like gunshot effects become a thing in movies? Maybe like the 50s, 60s, maybe? Like the
probably
French
when
New
the
Wave
Western
when
started.
Scorsese Westerns, right? Maybe like Italian Westerns, all
Yeah,
the Clint Eastwood movies that might have had some blood in it.
they did. Yeah.
But yeah, these movies, and also, I mean, black and white didn't really make sense, to have show
But
blood.
then
It
you look at
wasn't. It was gonna
Psycho, you
be.
still have the Hershey chocolate.
Yeah, but that's horror. That's a little bit different. I'm talking more of just like I don't know, just like anything gunshot related, action.
I mean,
But yeah, film noir, especially like those
yeah,
private detective movies of the 40s.
yeah, you would
Never really
have those.
saw.
You'd have
Well,
that.
you didn't see
You
blood.
didn't see the blood, but there was
Yeah, you
tons
saw
of
the.
violence.
Yeah, that's what I mean though. But like, when did you actually start seeing like squibs going off and stuff like that in movies? Like when did squibs become a thing? There was mafia gangster movies in the 30s and 40s, but they didn't have blood. Public Enemy, Angels with Dirty Faces,
True, true.
another Bogart movie, same director as Casablanca. Check it out. It's got a small role in it. Angels with Dirty Faces, James Cagney. Humphrey Bogart will still always be one of my favorite actors of all time. I think he will live on forever as an actor who you can reference. And again, his style will never be imitated again. His look, I don't think you can ever imitate. He's
No.
the tough guy New Yorker kind of feeling guy from the 40s, but probably was also like 5'8" in real life, and I don't know, like really short. But still, it's a great movie. Casablanca is truly one of the greatest movies of all time. Yes, it is a romance. It's an action. It's a war movie, and it really is just an important movie for its time, especially World War II. One of the most interesting and important times of America, just America in general, with
Mhm.
everything that was going on in the world. So. Go watch it. Go watch my boy Humphrey Bogart kill it on screen and kill himself by smoking 18 packs of cigarettes probably a day, because every scene he's pretty much smoking.
I agree, Josh. Casablanca is one of the greatest in there, and just check it out, people. It's really, really worth watching. Like Josh said, if you're a very big movie buff, go watch it. It's a classic. It's awesome. Just go watch it. Go print. Moving on.
As time goes by. Yeah.
Okay, I'll leave it at that.
The fundamental things apply as time goes by. And when two lovers woo